The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
We're here to give notice to Governor DeSantis that if he does not negotiate with the College Board to allow AP African American Studies to be taught in the classrooms across the state of Florida, that these three young people will be the lead plaintiffs in a historic lawsuit.
That's the voice of attorney Benjamin Crump announcing just moments ago that he is prepared to sue the governor of the state of Florida, Ronald DeSantis, for banning AP African American history throughout the state. This is, of course, one of Ron DeSantis's hallmark techniques. He absolutely is the master of culture wars. He's the master of using wedge issues to deflect from what his actual agenda is, which is twofold. I don't ever want to downplay the fact that he is just a flat-footed racist, period. His first experience outside of college was teaching history at a private school in Georgia, and he is well known by his students as a teacher who taught pro-Confederate and pro-slavery lessons. So I don't want to downplay the fact that he is just a stone cold racist, but he's also doing this while he's simultaneously trying to defund schools in the state of Florida and privatize them through vouchers. The entirety of the state. I read you the thread from Florida State Representative Angie Nixon as she explained in great detail the plans of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Here's more from attorney Benjamin Crump at his press conference just moments ago.
These three young people will be the lead plaintiffs in a historic lawsuit. And you all need to remember their names because it's their courageous tenacity and their intellect that reminds me, Reverend Holmes, many of the examples that were shown to the world by a young John Lewis, a young Julian Bond, a young Fannie Lou Hamer. You will remember the names of Elijah Edwards, of Victoria Heckman, of Victoria McQueen, and Juliet Heckman. This is what it's about. It is about them. This is what the fight is for. Never, ever forget that. And the fact that they're coming forward in this consequential moment in history can never be taken lightly.
Attorney Crump was flanked by the three students that he named who are poised to be the plaintiffs in the lawsuit against Ronald DeSantis. He was also flanked by a friend of the show, Chevron State Senator Chevron Jones, who coordinated the event that happened today in Tallahassee. Now, as we talk about this story from Florida with Ron DeSantis, I need to juxtapose it with what's going on all around the country with public schools. There is an all-out war on public schools. They are attempting to destabilize the schools. And in fact, they've done a spectacular, they being conservatives, they have done a spectacular job of destabilizing schools with the help of organizations like Moms for Liberty, who have infiltrated school boards all across the country with not only astroturfed protests, but with actual coups, the ability to get their apparatchiks, their hitmen, elected to the school board. We saw that in Tennessee. They have, this conservative movement has one goal, and that is to take all of the public school funding and make it available to private and religious schools and some home schools. But overwhelmingly, they're trying to pour the coffers of every single state into the hands of private organizations and religious institutions to undo all of the American public school system. That's the goal. And so while Ron DeSantis is clearly stretching his legs with his racism, the ultimate goal of all of this is the complete destruction of the public school system. Why? Because the public school system is the number one threat to conservatism. Education is the number one threat to fascism. And the ability to rewrite history can't take place if you have free-thinking teachers in classrooms who are able to teach accurate history about this country. It is impossible to raise a generation of kids who will go blindly along with fascism if they are being taught the true history of this country. And that's what they want. Now, that's one of the things that the conservatives want to destroy. They also want to destroy the public school teacher unions, because the public school teacher unions are a massive threat to the Republican Party. But ultimately, it's about money. Ultimately, they understand that taxpayer dollars contribute billions of dollars in each state, respectively, for education. And they, Republicans, will never see a pot of taxpayer money that they don't want to privatize. See what they are consistently and persistently trying to do with Social Security. I reference State Representative Angie Nixon's Twitter thread explaining what is happening in the state of Florida. She said that I think it's important to highlight that, yes, DeSantis is attacking Black history in schools, but what's even worse, he's seeking to defund and bankrupt the entire public school system. He's using these attacks on Black curriculum as a distraction for something more insidious. He's pitching this as school choice. She believes in choice, but not at the expense of our public schools. It's going to allow anyone who goes to private schools, many of which have discriminatory practices, anyone who wants their kids to be homeschooled, to be eligible for thousands. This money is coming directly from public schools, and that is the point. I had a chance to speak with Donna Davis. She is an organizer in the city of Tampa, Florida, for Black Lives Matter. And this is what she said in regards to what Ron DeSantis is trying to do.
You can't triage in our ER because everyone is hemorrhaging. That's the situation in Florida. There's no way to say, we're going to treat this person in room 4. Everybody's bleeding out. The trans kids are bleeding out. Students in the schools are bleeding out. Ron DeSantis has $17 billion. And he's using that to create his own budget for private school vouchers. In 2025, it's very possible that public school will all be but defunct in this state.
And this is the goal of Republicans all across the country. I want to read for you from iowapublicradio.org. Governor Kim Reynolds, the governor of the state of Iowa, has signed into law her signature school choice legislation. The bill, introduced just 2 weeks ago in her condition of the state's address, would create tax-funded education savings accounts that would become available to K-12 students statewide with no income limits. The money deposited into the accounts could be spent on educational expenses such as tuition and fees at private and religious schools. It's going to total some $345 million a year. $345 million a year that will now be distributed to at least 42,000 private school students. That largesse is now going to private corporations, religious institutions, and it is abandoning the public. It is draining the public school system. Listen, I was a teacher for years, and I get that there's an argument in the Black community, specifically one that's held up by my friend Roland Martin, the school choice, right? Take your kids out of these failing public schools and send them to a charter school, send them somewhere where they can get a better education. The truth of the matter is, the reason these schools are failing in the first place is because we have been draining those schools from the beginning. That's number one. Number two, when the schools are funded based on property taxes in that area, when you are in an impoverished area, those schools are going to be underfunded. And now they're taking schools that are historically underfunded and taking those dollars and giving them to private institutions, to religious institutions. So all across the country, Republicans are doing what they historically have done with any largesse, any of the public coffers. They want to privatize it, because what does it do? Just like Ron DeSantis is trying to do in the state of Florida, he's trying to enrich his donors private corporations and religious institutions. He's trying to take public funds and give it to them with the added bonus of being able to neutralize any opposition that comes from an educated body politic and from organized teacher unions. This is what he's doing in addition to his rabid racism.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to let the American people know their access to conservative programming on one of our nation's largest satellite TV providers is at risk. DirectTV, one of my district's largest satellite providers, has threatened to remove NewsMax from its lineup.
That was the voice of Texas representative from the 15th Congressional District, Monica De La Cruz. And the update is they have not threatened to remove NewsMax. DirectTV has removed NewsMax.
Why? Why, may I ask? NewsMax is simply asked to receive equal compensation for DirectTV carrying its channel through carriage fees. Though NewsMax has higher ratings than many other more liberal stations offered on DirectTV, the satellite provider owned by AT&T will not negotiate in good faith with NewsMax.
Well, I will give it to her. At least she's being honest about the fact that this is a business deal that has gone wrong for NewsMax. NewsMax headline on their website says AT&T's DirectTV cancels NewsMax in censorship move. Now, that's how you play the Republican game. I'm surprised that no one got to Monica De La Cruz and gave her the actual talking points. So she mistakenly told the truth on the House floor. This is about NewsMax wanting more money for their carriage fees, for their cable, the fees that they get to be carried by cable and by satellite. They wanted more than what AT&T and DirectTV was willing to pay them.
This appears to be another victory in the woke left's efforts to cancel conservatives and limit free speech. Mr. Speaker, I rise these concerns as a defender of the First Amendment with the hope that DirectTV will do the right thing and keep NewsMax on its air. I yield back.
A little bit more practice on your speech before you go down there, Monica. Here's the thing. NewsMax is one of the leading arms of the conservative movement, of the QAnon conspiracy cult, of the Donald Trump insurrectionist January 6er movement. That's all they promote to the highest extent. If you've ever watched their content, you'll know I'm not exaggerating whatsoever. I find it hilarious that conservatives are losing their collective-ish over this, because the truth of the matter is that there is literally no comparison when it comes to the amount of media that the right gets in this country, that they get paid to do. They're getting paid to broadcast, not just from subscribers like most of us in the real independent media have to depend on subscribers and advertiser dollars. They're getting funds directly from people who pay subscription fees to DirectTV. People who pay cable fees. You will recall OAN, One American News Network, was literally created by AT&T giving them carriage fees. Fox News gets cable fees from every one of us who doesn't even watch Fox News. But if you have cable, you actually contribute to Fox News. Now, I just named three: Fox News, OAN, and NewsMax. Can you name more than one so-called leftist organization on these networks? I don't consider MSNBC to be leftist, but let's throw them in there for good measure. What else is there? Who else has the benefit of getting paid millions of dollars every year just in carriage fees? And when it wasn't enough, and it does seem to be a trend amongst conservatives to never be satisfied with the obscene amount of money that they are offered, Steven Crowder. But when it wasn't enough, NewsMax asked for more. And of course, they lost at the negotiating table. And somehow this is a massacre of epic proportions, such that it should be mentioned on the House floor. Why? Because House conservatives, Republicans, Senate Republicans and just ye standard Republicans from the rank and file of social media got their opportunities and their big breaks on this nationally distributed network called NewsMax. They were able to do it for years. And now the greed has gone so far where AT&T is like, okay, it's not worth it. It was worth it to AT&T. AT&T, they're not heroes in this, right? Let's be sure. They helped create OAN. They helped generate and boost millions of dollars in revenue for NewsMax because in 2020, they were all the rave. And everyone was talking about Donald Trump having the election stolen from him. So all of the conservatives were in a tizzy. And so they tuned in to NewsMax and AT&T, DirectTV. They rewarded them handsomely, but they're not going to raise the fees that they're going to pay them. This is a business deal, but that won't stop the House floor from being used by the likes of Monica de la Cruz going down there and saying that this isn't the left. At least she brought it back into standard talking points. It's the woke left victory. No, it's the inability to negotiate. And it's the inability to actually get more than what you're worth from DirectTV. You really should never have gotten anything, NewsMax. Really should never have gotten anything. But you put up a nice camera. It's pretty easy to make a good production these days. It costs a little money, but when you're getting money fronted to you from DirectTV, AT&T, you can go out and buy some cameras and hire staff and make it look like you're a professional organization when you're nothing more than a propaganda machine for Donald Trump and QAnon.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions. Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Did any of you, I don't know if any of you paid attention to the so-called Twitter files where Matt Taibbi did the bidding of Elon Musk, took internal documents from Twitter and tried to create, I think they're on like Twitter files number 27, and tried to create a controversy out of requests being made of Twitter as an organization to allegedly censor Republicans and conservatives and the GOP and to help protect, allegedly to help protect Hunter Biden and just the standard Republican talking points. And Elon Musk was heralded as a champion of free speech. Now, the reality of it is the Twitter files were a nothing burger of the highest order, in that there were requests made by government officials or by campaigns. And generally speaking, Twitter did not comply. That's the scope and the breadth of the Twitter files. Well, turns out that in just a little bit of time that Elon Musk has been the owner of Twitter, he has himself literally complied and done the bidding of a very powerful politician, political leader. This is reporting that was done by Ryan Grimm and Murtaza Hussain at The Intercept. Elon Musk caves to pressure from India to remove a BBC documentary critical of Modi. Officials from India's ruling right-wing party said American tech companies like Twitter and YouTube complied with demands to remove the documentary. Now, this sounds like a real Twitter files. According to The Intercept, Twitter and YouTube censored a report critical of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in coordination with the government of India. Officials called for the big tech companies to take action against a BBC documentary exploring Modi's role in a genocidal 2002 massacre in the Indian state of Gujarat, which the officials deemed a propaganda piece. This act of censorship, according to The Intercept, wiping away allegations of crimes against humanity committed by a foreign leader, sets a worrying tone for Twitter, especially in light of its new management. Elon Musk's self-identification as a free speech absolutist has been a primary talking point for the billionaire as he has sought to explain why he took ownership of the platform last year. Much of his criticisms of Twitter revolved around its decision to censor reporting around Hunter Biden, the son of then presidential candidate Joe Biden. And then they provided an update. After publication of the story, Musk, who helms Twitter communications effort himself, tweeted a response saying, quote, "First I've heard. It's not possible for me to fix every aspect of Twitter worldwide overnight while still running Tesla and SpaceX, among other things." Well, then perhaps we can expect Elon Musk to turn over all of the internal documentation that is surrounding this decision by Twitter. He doesn't seem to know how it happened. He said he's not a part of it. So maybe we can expect Twitter Files number 75, where he turns over all of the internal documents pertaining this decision and turns it over to Matt Taibbi so that he can report just like they reported on Hunter Biden's laptop, or the nude picture of Hunter Biden that was requested to be taken down, which conservatives are pretending is the grossest example of censorship. But I would argue that censoring an entire prime minister's hand in a genocidal act is much worse than a campaign asking for their son's naked picture to be removed from Twitter. But you and I both know that that's not the point. The point is that Elon Musk is at the helm of Twitter for one reason and one reason alone, and that is to forward the agenda of right-wing reactionaries all across the globe and to suppress the speech of leftists. That's plain and simple. He likes to pretend as though he is a centrist, but like I have said for many, many years, Elon Musk is at a minimum Nazi adjacent. I would just call him straight out a fascist myself. It shouldn't be shocking to hear that when you consider he was raised in and benefited from apartheid South Africa. Family wealth came from the emerald mines where South Africans toiled and slaved. I'm sorry, this is who Elon Musk always has been, and he can play plausible deniability all he wants. His friends in journalism, and I use that word journalist very loosely, Matt Taibbi and Glenn Greenwald and all of his Nazi adjacent friends like Andy Ngo, they can all pretend that Elon Musk is a centrist and a free speech absolutist, but when the rubber meets the road, he is nothing more than a pawn for fascism. Interesting news coming out of the Vatican. Pope Francis has declared that homosexuality is not a crime. I'm reading from the Associated Press. Pope Francis criticized laws that criminalize homosexuality as unjust, saying God loves all his children just as they are, and called on Catholic bishops who support the laws to welcome LGBTQ people into the church. He said being homosexual isn't a crime during an exclusive interview Tuesday with the Associated Press. Francis acknowledged that Catholic bishops in some parts of the world support laws that criminalize homosexuality or discriminate against LGBTQ people, and he himself referred to the issue in terms of sin, but he attributed such attributes to cultural backgrounds and said bishops in particular need to undergo a process of change to recognize the dignity of everyone. I've come to the conclusion that there are just two different types of people on the planet. Those who have to have someone they can ostracize, and those who don't. The church absolutely is constantly looking for someone to vilify. It's not that they're willing to vilify actual villains. It's that they need someone, that they need a group of people, conservatives. It's very analogous to what conservatives do. They need a group of people that they can dehumanize and point to and say, you're the problem. Most of the time, it's projection. Most of the time, it's even worse than projection. It is a deflection from their own sin the Catholic Church of all people should have nothing to say about sexual morality, period, point blank. They should shut up for the rest of eternity when you consider the number of children they have molested. And they have the nerve. Now, perhaps maybe I should take the Pope's announcement a little more graciously. I should, be like, good on him. Okay, nah, not today. I'm not really feeling that today. And I'm not even sure when I became such an ardent supporter of the LGBTQ community or ally as much as I can possibly be. But I think it happened when I realized I am not going to spend my life fixating on anybody else. I'm not going to spend my life worried about what someone does in the privacy of their home with their consenting adults. It's none of my business. And I certainly don't need a group to vilify, especially when we have capitalists out here, especially when we have greedy, soul-sucking vultures who would just as soon see you die on the corner of a street homeless and starved than they would pay a little bit more in taxes. So to hear the Pope say, and I guess, cool, it's not a crime. Okay. The theological debate is whether or not it's a sin. But that there are bishops who actively promote it being a crime, which means it's punishable by law. And of course, we do know around the world, there are nations where it is punishable by death. But to have Catholic bishops involved in that conversation, when if we check their search engine results, if we check their browser history, my God, today, if we ask their parishioners, if we talk to the children in their congregation, how many of these righteous men are engaged in a level of depravity that, well, they better hope hell is not real. And it's hilarious to me. It's hilarious to me that of all the things humanity is guilty of doing to each other, the thing that this entire institution of the church, the Catholic Church, all the churches, what they obsess over is whether or not someone's gay. They don't obsess over how many women the pastor has slept with while he's married to someone else. They don't obsess over how many children. They literally protect the molesters. Churches have a history, a proven track record of protecting pedophiles, but they get up there and they list homosexuality, not with sin, with a crime that a lot of evangelicals are now saying should be punishable by death. Good on the Pope for, I guess, let me be a good sport. At least he's saying this. It's something. But at the end of the day, I'm just not interested in hearing about sexual morality from a group of men who have a track record of raping women and children, of committing acts of incest, of debauchery, depravity, selfishness, greed. I'm not interested in hearing about sexual morality from people whose righteousness is worse than filthy rags. They have blood on their hands. They have traumatized children in their past and present. They have a catalog of bodies that they have assaulted for centuries. And they have the nerve to stand up and lecture anyone about sexual morality? No. All this is a continuation of the vilification of a certain group that is necessary for these institutions to justify their existence, that's necessary to play into the bigotry that drives the politics. It's necessary for them to deflect from all of the things that they have done to women and to children since time immemorial. patrons, stay tuned. We've got 30 more minutes to go. Everyone else, patreon.com/the BPD show. Or I'll see you next time.